Hello, guys. Welcome you all to the Insights into Books podcast. Before we start, kindly follow or subscribe us, and if you want daily summary files of these books, then subscribe us on Gumroad. Links are in description. Now, let's start today's discussion, guys.
All right, so today we're really diving deep into something that challenges a lot of common ideas about what it takes to succeed.
Yeah.
We're talking about this concept of grit.
Grit. Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds tough, determined. But what are we really talking about here? Because, usually when we think high achievers, we think, I don't know, natural talent, genius IQ.
Exactly. That's the default, isn't it?
Yeah.
We love the idea of the prodigy, the person who just gets it effortlessly. It's almost romanticized. But the research we're looking at suggests there's this other factor, this combination of passion and perseverance over the long haul, that's actually a much stronger predictor of achievement.
Passion and perseverance. Okay, so it's not just being smart, it's sticking with something.
Precisely. It's about having a real, enduring passion for a long-term goal, and then having the sheer stamina to keep going day after day, especially when things get tough or boring or when you fail.
So break that down a bit more. If grit is the key, how are we defining it specifically? Is it just working hard?
It's more than just a burst of hard work, like, cramming for an exam or pulling an all-nighter on a project. That's intensity, and intensity is common. Grit is about stamina.
Stamina, like a marathon runner, not a sprinter.
Exactly like that. It's the ability to maintain effort and interest over years, sometimes decades, towards achieving that really big, overarching goal. It's about falling down, like we all do, and getting back up again and again.
Okay, that makes sense conceptually, but where's the evidence? How do we know this stamina, this grit, actually matters more than, say, raw talent?
Well, there's some really compelling data from places where the stakes are incredibly high. Think about the United States Military Academy at West Point.
Right? Super selective, high achievers already.
Absolutely. These are cadets who've already jumped through hoops. Great grades, athletic ability, leadership potential. They're the cream of the crop by conventional standards.
Yeah.
Yet, even in that elite group, about 1 in 5 drops out during the initial, incredibly demanding summer training they call Beast Barracks.
Wow, 1 in 5, even after getting in. That's significant.
It is. And researchers went in and measured various qualities, including what they called a grit scale. This scale basically assessed two things: consistency of interests over time and perseverance of effort.
And what did they find? Did this grit scale predict who'd make it through Beast?
Astonishingly well, actually. It turned out to be a significantly more reliable predictor of who would stick it out than things like their SAT scores, their high school rank, or their physical aptitude scores.
Okay, hold on. That's really counterintuitive. You're saying the kids who looked smartest on paper, the highest scorers, weren't necessarily the ones who succeeded when things got really tough.
Even more than that. In some cases, high entrance scores, like SATs, were actually inversely correlated with grit. Slightly, but consistently.
Inversely. So higher scores sometimes meant less grit. Why? Why would that be?
Well, one strong hypothesis is about experience with failure. If you're someone for whom things have always come relatively easily because of natural talent, you might not have developed the psychological tools, the resilience, to cope when you inevitably hit a wall.
So the first time you really struggle, it feels like proof you can't do it, rather than just proof that it's hard.
Exactly. You might interpret that difficulty as a sign of a fundamental lack of ability, a fixed trait. And if you believe ability is fixed, why keep banging your head against the wall? It can lead to quitting sooner when the going gets genuinely tough. They haven't learned to just, grind it out.
That makes a scary amount of sense. And it really brings us to this core idea you mentioned earlier, this concept that effort, well, it counts more than we think.
It counts twice, is the argument. And understanding this is, I think, really fundamental if you want to apply these ideas. There's a sort of equation for achievement proposed here.
An equation? Okay, I'm intrigued.
It goes like this. First part, talent multiplied by effort equals skill.
Okay, talent times effort equals skill. So talent is like how quickly you pick things up when you try.
Yeah, exactly. Someone with high talent might develop a certain skill level faster with the same amount of effort than someone with lower talent. But that's only the first step.
Right, because having a skill isn't the same as achieving something with it.
Precisely. The second part of the equation is skill multiplied by effort equals achievement.
Ah, I see it now. Effort shows up in both equations.
It's the multiplier in both stages. Effort builds the skill from your raw talent, and effort is what makes that skill productive, turning it into tangible accomplishments out there in the world.
So without sustained effort, even incredible talent just sits there. Unused potential.
Exactly. It remains potential. Talent is important, no doubt. It gives you a starting advantage, perhaps. But effort is the factor that transforms potential into reality. It's the currency you spend to get good, and then the currency you spend to use that skill effectively.
You hear echoes of this in how top performers talk, don't you? That relentless focus on work ethic. I'm thinking of athletes or entrepreneurs who say things like, you might be smarter, but you won't outwork me.
Absolutely. That sentiment perfectly captures it. It's a belief that sheer, dogged persistence can overcome differences in raw ability. It's about choosing to put in the work day after day, even when it's not glamorous, even when you're not seeing immediate results. It's that commitment to the grind.
Okay, so if effort is this crucial multiplier and grit is about sustained effort and passion, the really exciting part is maybe grit isn't something you're just born with. Can you develop it?
That's the core message, really. Grit isn't seen as a fixed trait. It's malleable. It can be cultivated. And the research points to 4 key psychological assets that people high in grit tend to possess and develop. We can think of them as pillars.
4 pillars. Okay, where do we start?
Let's start with the passion side of the equation. The first asset is interest.
Interest. Okay, that seems obvious. You stick with things you like.
It seems obvious, but it's foundational. You really do perform better and persist longer when you're intrinsically interested in what you're doing. It provides that initial spark, that fuel to get started and push through the early difficulties.
But here's where I think people get tripped up. They wait for this thunderbolt moment, right? The sudden revelation of their one true passion. They spend years thinking, what am I really interested in?
And that passive waiting is often the mistake. The way interest typically develops, according to the research, isn't usually a single epiphany. It's described more like a process. A little bit of discovery, followed by a lot of development, and then a lifetime of deepening.
Discovery, development, deepening. Okay, so it's active.
Very active. Interests are triggered by interacting with the world. You have to try things, experiment, maybe fail a bit, see what resonates. You can't just sit in a room and introspect your way to a passion. It requires engagement.
So less waiting for the muse, more messing around, trying stuff out.
Pretty much. You need that initial phase of discovery, which can be messy and serendipitous. You know, Jeff Bezos apparently noted that trying to force an interest rarely works. You have to allow yourself to be a beginner, to sample different things without immediate pressure for mastery.
Like kids trying different sports before settling on one.
Exactly like that. Many top athletes, for instance, didn't specialize super early. They played soccer, basketball, swam, whatever, before finding the sport where they truly excelled and which they loved enough to endure the intense training. That breadth gives you options, helps you find the right fit.
And once you find that spark, that initial interest, the development and deepening phases are about sticking with it.
Right. That's where the perseverance kicks in, which involves practice. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But the passion side involved actively developing that initial interest, learning more, getting better, and finding nuances that keep it engaging over the long term. Studies show that grittier individuals tend to make fewer career changes. They stick with their chosen path longer.
Okay, so genuine interest provides the initial fuel and enjoyment. But what happens when the enjoyment fades? You know, when the work gets tedious or frustrating, what keeps the passion alive then?
That brings us to the second passion pillar, purpose.
Purpose, meaning significance.
Yes, it's the conviction that what you're doing matters beyond just yourself. It connects your work, your long-term goal, to the well-being of others or to something larger than your own success. It's a belief that your efforts contribute positively in some way.
This sounds like moving from just a job or even a career to a calling.
That's a great way to put it. Think about that classic story of the 3 bricklayers. You ask them what they're doing. The first says, I'm laying bricks. That's a job. The second says, I'm building a church. That's a career, maybe. The third says, I'm building the house of God.
He sees the ultimate purpose, the calling.
Right, and research backs this up. People who view their work as a calling, who see how their specific tasks connect to a larger, often pro-social purpose, report significantly higher life satisfaction and, crucially, exhibit more grit. That sense of purpose fuels perseverance when motivation flags.
Okay, but let's be real. Many people have jobs that don't feel like building a cathedral. Maybe you're an accountant, a data entry clerk, a sanitation worker. How do you find purpose in tasks that seem, well, mundane?
That's a really important point. Purpose isn't just for doctors or activists. It's often something you actively construct through how you think about your work. It's about framing.
Framing. How so?
Take the sanitation worker example. On the surface, tough job, right? But if that person consciously connects their daily tasks, collecting trash, keeping streets clean, to the larger purpose of public health, community well-being, preventing disease, suddenly it's not just hauling garbage, it's a vital service.
So you're constantly linking the small, everyday actions back to a bigger why, asking who benefits from this?
Exactly. You find the connection between your effort and its impact on others. And another key factor here is role models. Seeing other people live purposeful lives, especially people who overcome obstacles in pursuit of their purpose, is incredibly inspiring. It helps us believe that we too can make a difference.
Right, seeing makes believing, in a way. Especially for kids, I imagine.
Hugely important for kids. Seeing adults pursue something meaningful with dedication helps them internalize that possibility for themselves.
Okay, so we have interest and purpose as the two pillars fueling the passion side. Now let's talk about the other side, perseverance. How do we actually sustain the effort? What's the first pillar there?
The first, and perhaps most critical pillar for building skill, is practice. But not just any practice. We're talking about deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice, I've heard that term. It's not just noodling around on the guitar or hitting golf balls aimlessly, right?
Not at all. Deliberate practice is highly structured, systematic, and, frankly, very demanding. Its sole aim is improvement, pushing beyond your current capabilities. It's the opposite of mindless repetition, or just doing what you're already good at.
Okay, so what makes practice deliberate? What are the key components?
There are generally three core elements that have to be there. First, you need to focus on a specific, narrow aspect of your skill that needs improvement. You set a stretch goal for that tiny component, something just outside your comfort zone.
So not get better at guitar, but nail that one difficult chord change cleanly 10 times in a row.
Precisely. You isolate the weakness. Second, you need intense concentration and effort. 100% focus, no distractions, no multitasking. You're fully engaged in trying to hit that specific stretch goal.
Okay, sounds mentally taxing already. What's the third element?
This one's crucial and often uncomfortable. You need immediate, informative feedback. You need to know right away how you did on that specific attempt and ideally why you succeeded or failed. Then, based on that feedback, you adjust and repeat again and again and again.
Wow. Identify weakness, focus intensely, get smacked with feedback, repeat. That sounds hard. And not necessarily fun.
It is hard. It's pushing yourself right to the edge of your ability where mistakes are inevitable. It requires constantly confronting what you can't do yet. That's why most top performers, even world-class experts, can typically only sustain maybe 3 to 5 hours of true deliberate practice per day.
Only 3 to 5 hours? That sounds low for world class. Oh, but you mean that specific kind of intense, focused practice?
Exactly, the kind that really stretches you. It's incredibly draining. You're essentially making yourself consciously incompetent over and over until that specific sub-skill becomes automatic, moving towards unconscious competence.
Okay, but this raises a question. If deliberate practice is so demanding and often unpleasant, how does that fit with the passion part? Don't gritty people supposedly enjoy their work? Isn't there a risk of burnout if you're constantly in this high-effort, feedback-heavy zone?
That's a fantastic point, and it brings in a really important distinction about the type of passion involved.
Yeah.
Not all passion is created equal when it comes to sustainability.
Yeah.
We need to differentiate between what's called harmonious passion and obsessive passion.
Harmonious versus obsessive. Okay, what's the difference?
Obsessive passion is when the activity starts to control you. Your sense of self-worth gets completely wrapped up in your performance. You feel this uncontrollable urge to engage in the activity. You might ruminate about it constantly. Even when you're supposed to be off, it feels like a compulsion.
And that leads to burnout.
Very often, yes. It's associated with higher stress, anxiety, less enjoyment, fewer flow states, and a much greater risk of emotional exhaustion because you can't switch off. The activity dominates your identity in an unhealthy way.
Okay, so harmonious passion is the healthy version.
Right. With harmonious passion, you still love the activity deeply, it's important to you, but you remain in control. It's integrated smoothly with other parts of your life. You choose to engage in it freely. You can get deeply absorbed, experience flow, but you can also detach, enjoy other things, rest, and recharge.
And gritty people tend to have the harmonious kind.
So research suggests, yes, they have this deep engagement and love for their long-term goal. But it doesn't consume them to the point of self-destruction.
Yeah.
They can endure the difficulty of deliberate practice because it serves that harmoniously held passion, and they know how to balance it.
So deliberate practice builds the skill. Harmonious passion provides the sustainable energy. but we still face setbacks. We fail. What's the final pillar that keeps people going after they fall down?
That would be hope. But again, a specific kind of hope.
Not just wishing things will get better.
No, not passive wishful thinking like hoping the universe throws you a bone. It's an active, gritty kind of hope. It's the expectation that your own efforts can improve your future. It's the belief that challenges are surmountable, that setbacks are temporary.
It sounds like optimism or maybe self-efficacy, the belief you can actually do something about your situation.
Very much so. It ties closely into concepts like learned optimism. It's about how you interpret adversity. Do you see a failure as permanent and pervasive? I'm just bad at this, I always fail. Or do you see it as temporary and specific? I didn't succeed this time because of this specific reason, which I can change.
Right. One view leads to giving up, the other leads to trying again, maybe differently.
Exactly. It's captured perfectly in that Japanese proverb, fall 7 times, rise 8. That 8th rising. That's hope in action. It's fueled by the belief that falling isn't the end of the story. Failure becomes feedback, a cue to adjust your strategy, not a final judgment on your ability.
Is there a story or example that illustrates this gritty hope in action?
There's a great one involving a student taking a really tough college course, let's say neurobiology. This person was generally a good student. But the first couple of quizzes, disaster. Low grades, panic setting in.
Been there. The maybe I'm not cut out for this moment.
Right. The fixed mindset reaction would be, this is too hard for me, I should drop the course. But the gritty response, fueled by hope, was different. It was, okay, this is bad, but I won't quit. I can figure this out. This is temporary.
But just thinking that isn't enough, right? The hope has to lead to action.
Absolutely crucial point. The hope wasn't just passive optimism. It immediately translated into a change in strategy. The student didn't just decide to study more hours doing the same thing. They decided to study differently.
How so?
They resolved to go to every single office hour for the teaching assistants, a huge time commitment. They actively sought out extra practice problems. They specifically drilled the hardest concepts under timed conditions, simulating the exam pressure until those concepts felt manageable.
Wow. That's a strategic, targeted effort born from refusing to accept the initial failure as final.
Exactly. And the result wasn't necessarily a sudden A+ half. Maybe it was a hard-earned B. But the real victory wasn't just the grade. It was the proof to oneself that setbacks could be overcome through strategic effort. It reinforces the belief. If I change my approach, if I persist intelligently, I can improve. That's gritty hope.
Okay, so these 4 assets, interest, purpose, practice, hope, they build grit from the inside out. But managing all this sustained effort toward a long-term goal, it feels like it would require some serious organization. How do gritty people structure their ambitions?
That's another key piece.
Yeah.
They tend to have a clear hierarchy of goals. It's not just a random collection of things they want to do. It's structured, like a pyramid.
A goal pyramid. Okay, explain that.
At the very bottom, you have lots of low-level goals. These are the concrete, specific things you need to do today or this week, like write 500 words, run 3 miles, call that client, practice scales for 30 minutes. They're very specific and short-term.
Okay, the daily to-dos.
Right. These low-level goals all serve your mid-level goals. These are broader objectives, things that might take weeks or months to achieve, like finish the project proposal, complete the marathon training program, master that difficult piano piece.
So the daily tasks build up to these medium-term achievements.
Exactly. But here's the most important part. Both the low-level and mid-level goals should all be aligned in service of one single, overarching top-level goal at the very peak of the pyramid.
One single goal, the ultimate concern.
Yes. This top-level goal is the why. It's the ultimate aim, the expression of your core passion and purpose. It's abstract, but it provides direction and meaning to everything below it. For truly gritty people, this top-level goal remains remarkably stable over long periods, sometimes a lifetime. It acts like a compass.
Now, that makes sense for focus, but
Yeah.
most people I know, myself included, feel pulled in multiple directions. We have several top-level goals competing for attention, right? How do gritty people maintain that singular focus?
They practice ruthless prioritization. There's a story often attributed to Warren Buffett that illustrates this perfectly. It's a 3-step exercise.
Okay, let's hear it.
Step 1. Write down your top 25 career goals or life goals. Step 2. Review the list carefully and circle your top 5 most important goals. Just 5.
Okay, 25 down to 5. That's already tough. What's step 3?
Step 3 is the killer. Take a good, hard look at the 20 goals you didn't circle, and then avoid those 20 goals at all costs. They are your avoid at all cost list.
Avoid them. But they were important enough to make the initial list of 25. Why avoid them completely?
Because they are the most dangerous distractions. They're enticing enough to pull your time and energy away from your top 5, but they're not important enough to be your absolute priority. Trying to pursue too many goals leads to spreading yourself too thin, achieving mediocrity across the board instead of excellence in what matters most.
So the idea is finite time, finite energy, focus it intensely on the few truly vital goals.
Precisely. It implies a kind of flexibility at the lower levels. You might change your daily tasks or even mid-level projects if they aren't serving the top goal effectively. But you remain fiercely loyal and consistent with that top-level goal, that ultimate concern.
Be flexible on the how, but stubborn on the why.
You got it. Low-level goals might be written in pencil, ready for revision.
Yeah.
That top-level goal, that's written in ink.
Okay. This entire framework, the effort equation, the 4 assets, the goal hierarchy, it all seems to rest on a fundamental belief system, doesn't it? You have to believe that your effort actually makes a difference.
Absolutely essential. Underpinning all of this is the concept of mindset, specifically having a growth mindset.
Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. We hear these terms a lot. Remind us of the core difference.
A fixed mindset is the belief that your basic qualities, like intelligence or talent, are simply fixed traits. You have a certain amount, and that's that. You can't really change it.
So you either are smart or you aren't.
Right. In contrast, a growth mindset is the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication, hard work, good strategies, and learning from feedback. It doesn't deny differences in talent, but it emphasizes that potential is something that can be cultivated.
And why is having a growth mindset so critical for grit?
Because everyone, no matter how talented, encounters challenges and setbacks. If you have a fixed mindset, what does failure mean? It means you don't have it. You lack the necessary fixed ability. So the rational response might be to give up, to avoid challenges where you might fail and prove your inadequacy.
Whereas if you have a growth mindset,
Failure is interpreted completely differently. It's not a verdict on your fixed ability. It's information. It signals that you haven't mastered it yet. It means you need to try harder, try a different strategy, learn more. Failure becomes a natural, even necessary part of the learning process, not a reason to quit.
so the belief that you can grow fuels the perseverance needed to actually do the growing.
Precisely. It enables that cycle of deliberate practice, learning from feedback and maintaining hope. You stick with the hard stuff because you fundamentally believe that sticking with it will make you better. You believe people can always improve.
Okay, so practically speaking, if we want to foster a growth mindset in ourselves or maybe in our kids or teams, what's the key?
One of the most powerful things is focusing praise and feedback on the process, not the person or their innate ability.
So instead of, wow, you're so smart, say,
Wow, you worked really hard on that problem. Or, I liked how you tried different approaches until you figured it out. Or, that was a tough challenge and you really stuck with it. Praising effort, strategy, persistence, resilience that reinforces the idea that these are the things that lead to success, and they are things the person can control and develop.
praising intelligence can actually backfire, right? Make people afraid to risk looking dumb.
Exactly. It can inadvertently foster a fixed mindset, making them hesitant to take on challenges where they might not look smart anymore.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about cultivating grit from the inside mindset, goals, passion, practice, hope. But we don't exist in a vacuum. What about the outside influences, our environment, our culture?
Hugely important. Grit doesn't develop in isolation. It's significantly influenced, either boosted or suppressed, by the culture around you. Being part of a gritty culture can make a massive difference.
A gritty culture, what does that look like?
It's a group, a team, a family, an organization where high standards, perseverance, resilience, and sustained effort are the norm. They're explicitly valued, talked about, and rewarded. It's a place where people support each other through challenges and celebrate hard work, not just flashy talent.
So, if your environment constantly emphasizes quick wins, or celebrates effortless genius, or makes it easy to quit when things get tough, you're basically fighting an uphill battle.
You're constantly swimming against the current, as the saying goes. And that's exhausting. It takes a lot more individual willpower to maintain grit when the prevailing culture doesn't support it.
This sounds relevant for companies, too. You mentioned earlier how focusing too much on talent can be problematic.
Yes, organizations that obsess over hiring stars or innate talent can sometimes inadvertently create a fixed mindset culture. People might become focused on looking smart rather than being willing to learn admit mistakes, and put in the long, hard effort needed for real breakthroughs.
Almost fostering a kind of narcissism, where appearing capable is more important than actually developing capability through struggle.
It can lean that way. It can discourage the very humility and persistence that grit requires. A truly gritty culture rewards not just the brilliant insight, but also the person who wrestled with a problem for months, failed, learned, and eventually found a robust solution through sheer perseverance.
So, when hiring or evaluating, maybe look more for evidence of long-term commitment and follow-through, not just potential.
Exactly. Look for people who have finished hard things, who have stuck with challenges over multiple years. That track record often says more about their potential for future achievement than a test score.
Okay, bringing it closer to home. What about parenting or mentoring? Is there a practical strategy to help instill grit in younger people to create a mini gritty culture within a family?
There's a concept called the hard thing rule that seems quite effective.
The hard thing rule. Okay, what is it?
It essentially has two parts. First, everyone in the family, including the parents, ideally, has to choose a hard thing, something that requires sustained effort and deliberate practice to get better at. It could be a sport, a musical instrument, learning code, mastering debate, whatever.
So, actively commit to something challenging. What's the second part?
The second part is crucial. You have to stick with that hard thing for a minimum period. You can't quit just because you have a bad week or because practice gets boring or because you lose a game. You have to see it through until a natural stopping point, like the end of the season, the recital, the completion of the project.
Ah, so it teaches follow-through. No quitting midstream just because it's difficult.
Precisely. You can choose not to sign up again next year, that's fine. But you learn the discipline of finishing what you started, of pushing through the inevitable dips in motivation and enjoyment.
And these kinds of activities, like extracurriculars, are good practice grounds for grit.
They're ideal, really,
Yeah.
because they often combine challenge with intrinsic interest, that passion piece again. They require practice, they often involve working towards a goal, purpose, and they definitely teach you how to cope with setbacks, hope. The skills learned there are highly transferable.
And the data backs this up. Sticking with hard things pays off.
Yes, studies show that sustained engagement, like sticking with an extracurricular for 2 years or more, is a pretty good predictor of positive outcomes later in life, like educational attainment and career progression. And of course, the most powerful thing parents and mentors can do is model grit themselves.
Walk the talk.
Exactly. Kids absorb far more from watching how adults handle their own challenges and pursue their own long-term goals with passion and perseverance than they do from lectures about hard work.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground here. Let's try to quickly recap the core ideas.
Sure. We started by defining grit, not just as talent, but as that powerful combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. We talked about effort counting twice, building skill, and then making skill productive.
Right. And then the four key assets we can cultivate: finding and deepening interest, engaging in deliberate practice, which involves focus and feedback,
Connecting our work to a larger purpose for meaning, and maintaining active, strategic hope to overcome setbacks.
We also touched on the importance of structuring our goals in a hierarchy with one clear top-level goal and being ruthless about prioritizing that 255 rule idea.
And underpinning it all, the necessity of a growth mindset, believing our abilities can develop through effort, which allows us to embrace challenges.
And finally, recognizing the power of our environment, seeking out or creating gritty cultures, and using strategies like the hard thing rule.
It really paints a picture where high achievement isn't just about the hand you're dealt genetically, but about the choices you make regarding effort, focus, and resilience over time.
It absolutely does. It feels very empowering, actually. It suggests that significant accomplishment is less about waiting for inspiration or relying on...
Exactly. True wisdom probably involves not just the ability to persevere, but also the ability to recognize when a particular path, even when you're passionate about, is truly blocked or leading you somewhere destructive. Knowing when to strategically abandon a goal or pivot to a new top-level goal might be just as important as knowing how to stick with one.
So how do we balance that incredible tenacity of grit with the self-awareness and strategic foresight to know when maybe it's time to cut our losses and redirect that energy? Where's that line?
That line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding that balance between unwavering commitment and intelligent adaptation. That might be the ultimate application of wisdom, going even beyond grit itself, something to definitely think about.
That is definitely something to chew on. A fascinating deep dive. This was it on today's book, guys. And guys, kindly subscribe and follow us for more such insights on various books. And also, do not forget to join our social media community to stay in touch and get updated.